Sometimes on Hooked on Adventure we've done it a bit tough, but now and again our luck's in. We're still in the southwest. Donnelly Lakes is the heart of trout country, and staying here we're guaranteed a bite. Now, I love camping and the great outdoors, but if the indoors are this great, I can easily be persuaded not to sleep under the stars. Bushy's first thought was to spend a fair bit of time in the heated spa, saying that with a tailwind he could cast to the lake from here. I said he was dreaming. I've seen his casting. You can get pretty wet on the inside around here too. Just across the road is Donnelly River Wines, and they make a top drop. This is somewhere for the whole family, a good place for kids to learn to fish and for big kids to have a bit of fun. Woohoo! Got him, Bushy.
About time.
Yeah, took a few casts. Oh, nice little fish.
It's been a bit hard to make them stick on. There's plenty in there.
Well, we've been to some wild places on the show, haven't we, Bushy? And this one's not quite so wild.
Oh, it's pretty wild. Had a wild time eating this morning.
We're here at Donnelly Lakes as the guests of John and Renata Suckling, and Renata is a really dab hand in the kitchen, and she said if we get a couple of trout out of the lake, hang on to them and she'll cook them up for us later on. Look at the colours on that, Bushy.
What's that sneaky little lure you've got hanging out of its mouth?
It's one of the new Halco little scorpions, the sneaky ones, the slow rise floaters, and that Ben Patrick's making now with the lighter toe point and lighter hooks, and it's a slow rise floater. And I tell you what, I think it's going to be, as well as a very good bream lure, I think it's going to be a deadly trout lure. It's working like a charm. Well, mate, I've got half our meal. I eat now. It's up to you to catch your own.
What do you mean you'll eat? You'd eat more than that for play lunch.
Now, here's how good the fishing is.
Dad, I got one!
I reckon this might be this young bloke's first trout, and he was pretty excited about showing his dad.
Dad, I got one!
I think his dad was pretty happy too. In fact, everyone was happy except Bushy, who still hadn't caught a trout. Now, of course, these trout are all have been bred in hatcheries here in Western Australia, and they're sold to operators like John and Renata, who stock them into their lakes and dams. So it's a put-and-take fishery. There's no way for the fish to spawn in here, so they're put in as fingerlings or as slightly bigger trout, and they're there for the enjoyment of people to come and catch. And it sure is a lot of fun, and it's a wonderful way to go fishing. There's definitely a place for these private fisheries like this. And that's not a bad little rainbow. Well, we're slowly putting together a feed. I don't know what Bushy's going to eat, but I've got lunch anyway. I spoke too soon.
Oh, yes!
Ha ha! Oh, nice fish, Bushy. Looks like you won't have to eat those dry crackers after all. Hey, that's a good one.
I had to put on the little scorpion. You were kicking my butt. I had to go for the little scorpion. I wasn't winning otherwise.
Well, you came good with a vengeance. Ooh, don't get a hook in your hand.
No, that'll be a bad thing.
They're lively, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Ow. Ow, 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 ow. So do we need to keep this one as well?
Yeah, I reckon three will do us. That'll do. Hang on to that. If we get any more, we'll put them back.
Yeah, it was funny though. I wasn't doing any good with the sinking scorpion, and you were well out fishing me with a little floating one. So I went over to it with the new hanger and started catching them.
Just a bit more subtle, a bit more finesse, I think. And they're no pushover, even though they're hatchery-reared trout. They're in here eating a lot of native stuff. You know, there's insects, there's various little aquatic nymphs swimming around. There's probably juvenile marron in here, so they're not pellet fed, they're wild fed fish, and you know, they're no pushover. And they're going to taste good too. Well, Renata, here's a couple of those rainbow trout that Bushy and I caught out of the lake. Now, a lot of people are a little bit disparaging about trout as an eating fish, and I tend to agree that most saltwater fish do eat better than them, but I bet you can turn these rainbow trout into something delectable. What are you going to do with them?
Well, I've been experimenting and I've come up with Quite a nice little recipe, I think, and you're going to try it out later and tell me about it.
All right.
So what you do is just grab your fish, and so I'm packing it dry.
Yep.
And into the fry pan, we place about a tablespoon or 2 of butter.
Right.
And this has been gently heating. The fry pan has to be medium heat. If you've got it too hot, you'll find the cooks too fast on the outside, and you'll find the inside is raw afterwards. Okay. So now we take the fish, and we're going to place it into the fry pan and gently cook it. We have to cook him 4 to 5 minutes either side until he's opaque in colour, and you can tell when they're cooked because the flesh becomes quite firm and it starts to break up.
Okay.
So you can actually tell. Now, because this isn't a very large fish, are you peeking there?
No, I was actually pretty impressed with the colour of the flesh on this fish. It's got a little bit of pink in it, which is nice.
Well, when John brought them here, he asked me to clean them, and I said, no way, I'm the cook. Sorry, I'm the chef, he's the cook. So he had to prep the fish for us.
Now, what can we be doing while that's cooking, or do we just wait for it to cook?
Well, we just have to wait.
Okay. Let's have a look how he's going.
On the other side, certainly.
Ooh,
Lovely.
browning up nicely.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to add some more butter because this is actually a little bit concave, this fry pan, and we don't want to burn it.
So how long will we give it on this side?
We'll give this another 4 or 5 minutes, and then it'll be ready for the next step of the recipe.
That's looking pretty good, Renata.
Yes, this rainbow trout's all ready, I think, and we'll use our plastic spatula to take it up onto the plate.
Ooh.
And from here, it'll go into the oven to keep warm.
Okay. What do we need next?
Well, if you could be my little genie and bring along the almonds, that'll help tremendously. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, the almonds.
Thanks, Steve.
So what are these, just shaved almonds or?
They are, but before we add those, I'm going to add a bit more butter to this.
Okay.
This will help make the sauce. So just melt the rest of the butter in our fry pan, and we're going to add the almonds to it.
So we're browning these, is that the idea?
That's right, Steve. We're going to brown them for about a minute, and then we're ready for the next stage. It just makes a nice finish to them before we place them over the trout.
Lovely. Now, what ingredient do you need next?
Well, Mr. Genie, can you please supply me the spring onions?
Spring onions, coming up.
Coming up.
Spring onions?
Thank you. And we'll let this cook for about a minute. And following this, we're going to add the zest of a lemon and about 1/4 cup of lemon juice.
So zest is just the grated yellow part off the skin, isn't it?
That's right, and that gives a real tang to this recipe and makes it kind of special.
All right.
Thanks
There's
for that.
your lemon
Steve.
juice.
The lemon juice just goes in there. Mix that up. And finally, a couple of tablespoons of honey, and you can do that if you like.
Oh, can I?
Yeah, go
I get
for
to
it.
do something here, all right.
You do.
So just squeeze away.
Squeeze away.
Say when.
I think when. That sounds good. Thanks for that.
No worries.
Now we just mix this up.
This is pretty simple.
Very easy, and these ingredients are found in most cupboards.
Yeah. And then we're going to plate up with the trout and put this over the top.
Over the top, and that's all there is. And it's.
I could do that.
You could do that. You could do that. Now this is all ready, Steve. So if I take the fish, would you mind carrying this heavy fry pan for us?
Not at all.
Thanks. Oh, this looks good.
Now I'll tilt that up.
Thank you. Now I'm just going to run this over the side, like this, and we're going to collect.
Looks and smells fantastic. The honey, isn't that got a great smell to it?
There we go.
No worries.
And then we can just tizzy up our plate. We'll put some lemon rings around it. Oh, what a man. Thanks.
Wipe Madame smudges off the plate.
Thank you.
Look at that.
And there we go. And there we have.
Ooh, trout a la Renata, and I can tell you it's going to taste fantastic because it smells wonderful. The smell of the honey and the butter, it's just permeated through with that trout. I don't know how you do it, Renata. Fantastic. And it's so simple. This is the Donnelly River, and we're meandering down towards the mouth to meet a local expert, keeping an eye out on the way for a likely spot where a trout might be taking refuge. See, there's a little tiny thing floating on the water there just past where that bush is. You cast in towards that dead branch, you'll go right over the top of where he was. Oh, got him. Oh, he threw it.
Oh, he hammered that.
Didn't he ever? Oh, nice trout.
Woohoo.
Most of the hooks have come out. Should get off in a second.
Don't say that.
My first ever Donnelly River rainbow trout. No, he's well hooked, Bushy. He's really nailed the rear treble. Famous last words, eh? Well, today we've come down the Donnelly River on the south coast of Western Australia, southwestern corner. And we're coming down here to meet Shan Lowe, who's a local fishing guide from Nannup. Shan runs Blackwood fishing tours, and he told us to have a bit of a fish on the way down the river. We're going to chase some bream down the bottom of this river, some black bream. But he said, look, there's some rainbow trout in the river as well, even though it's high summer. Look for any little creek mouths where some cooler water's coming in. And sure enough, he was spot on with his advice, because we've had a couple of strikes already, and now I've landed this beautiful rainbow trout. I'm gonna let this one go, Bushy.
What did he eat, Steve?
Little, yet again, the little Halco Sneaky, the little Sneaky Scorpion 35 that Ben made up specially for us. And I'd say by the time the folks at home see this, they'll be on the market, these. Ben has just improved them that much more by putting the lighter hardware on them so that they're a slow floating lure instead of a sinking lure. And you can just tweak them that much more intelligently and really work them. That's going to come out of there, and he's going to leap straight out of my hand. Now I've wet my hand. It is fairly warm weather and the water's fairly warm, so you just give them a little bit of time to revive. Make sure the fish comes good. Don't just throw it in the water and forget about it. Hold it upright, face it into any current, and wait until it swims out of your hand. Okay, here we go. Look at that, what a gorgeous fish. I'll pop him back in the water, and he's off like a shot. Well, mate, we better head down the bottom of the river, see if we can find some of these black bream, and see if we can find Shan Lowe, our guide for the day. But that wasn't a bad start for the day.
Good start. Let's see what we can do on a bream.
The trip down the Donnelly ultimately takes you past the jetties and shacks of a whole community of river dwellers. These places can only be reached by boat, and for a couple of dedicated anglers like Bushy and myself, this is heaven. Near the river mouth, the landscape changes to dramatic cliffs before it opens out to the sea beyond. Although often, especially in summer, a sandbar stretches right across the mouth. Near the beach, we met Shan Lowe, who runs a professional guided fishing operation in the region. Foolishly, he'd left unguarded muffins on the front of his boat. It was all very undignified. No matter how careful you are, tyre damage is a fact of life when you're four-wheel driving, and if you're serious about it, eventually you're going to have to effect your own repairs in the field. I've got Arthur Connor from All Wheel Training and Safety Solutions with me today, and he's going to show us how to do it using one of the best collections of tools around, the tyre pliers kit. Arthur, take it away, mate, and show us how it works.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, what we've got here is the tyre plier system, and this is the bead breaker unit, and this will break the bead from a 10-inch rim out to a 16-inch rim. It's quite simple to use. All we have to do is just stick it in here, let the air out of the tyre, of course. Put your foot on one end, dig it in under the rim here, and then use a lever action and just push the bead down. Move it around slightly, place it in again, foot back onto the other side there, in we go again, and we've basically broken the bead. Pretty simple to use, no real effort, and you can get these from any good four-wheel drive shop. You slide that
Along with a bead breaker, the tyre pliers kit also includes a set of tyre levers, a repair kit for fixing tubes and the side wall if it's been staked, and an instruction manual to read if all else fails. The tyre plier kit, if it's good enough for the Army and Arthur, it's good enough for me.
Don't leave home without it.
We're down near the Donnelly River mouth and fishing from Shan Lowe's boat for a good reason. As well as a chunky outboard, this craft also has a sneaky, silent-running Minn Kota electric motor. With a bit of luck, the fish we're chasing won't even hear us coming.
It's a bream! It's a little one, but that's all right, it's a start. Bushy! Oh, it's no monster, but it's a bream. Ooh.
The bream. It was good to get that little tap.
And come up tight. Oh, I thought I had a bite too, but I was dreaming.
Well, there you go. Trout at one end and bream at the other. It's a chunky little bream. You know what? We'll let him go. Whew.
My first catch was only a little fish, but it's one that could fool even a seasoned angler.
Well, it's interesting. We're drifting along these rocks trying for bream, and we started getting some hits, and we caught a couple of these fish. And at first glance, most people would say, oh yeah, it's a herring, but it's not a herring. It's a juvenile Australian salmon, and it gets a lot of people confused because they are very, very similar to the herring, but there's a couple of distinctive differences. For a start, the salmon lack the black tips on the tail that you see on herring. And a really good way of picking them is to actually just run your finger along them. The herring are quite rough to the touch. If you rub them from the tail towards the head, they feel quite rough, which is why in South Australia and Victoria they're called Tommy rough. Here in the West they're called herring. So the salmon has quite a different size limit and bag limit to the herring, and you can get yourself into trouble by keeping little undersized Australian salmon like this one. So just make sure you can pick the difference between your herring and your juvenile Australian salmon. He'll go out when this system breaks through to the sea. This bloke and all his mates will go out there and hopefully grow up to be a big 2 or 3 kilo blackback salmon that we can catch in the surf one day. Yeah, it's a bream. It's going to go around that buoy. Oh. Yeah, it's a reasonable bream. That was a classic tap, and he was on. Oh, look at that, Bushy. It's not a black bream, it's a silver bream, or a tar wine as we call them over in the eastern states. Not a bad one either. They're a handsome fish. Much lighter in colour than the black bream usually, and the real giveaway is the rounded forehead profile here and these longitudinal goldy yellow stripes running along the fish. They're actually made up of a spot on each scale. And also he's got the really bright yellow anal fin down under here, and it doesn't have a particularly stout spike in the beginning of it like the black bream does. Oh, Bushy really nailed that little soft plastic. He's got it right through the lip there. I'll get that out. And we'll get him back in the water and see if we can find one of these big southern black bream that Donnelly is famous for. Off you go, mate. Beautiful. Ha ha!
I knew he was in there the first time we went straight past.
We're heading back upstream to one of Shan's secret spots. Now, this is the sort of place that you'd probably never find without a big dollop of local knowledge.
Oh, I just got nailed. If you can hold us back just a little bit, Shan, that'd be great. Oh, oh, there he is again. Look at this, I'm figure eighting him. There's a bunch of them. Look at this.
While Bushy and I were getting all excited, Shan had quietly slipped a fly into the water.
Hey, he's got one. Well done.
Sly dog, snuck one in.
What'd you get him on, mate?
He's a little Alexandra fly, Steve.
Ooh, nice fish.
Just don't get around that pole.
Little juvenile rainbow trout fry. It's meant to imitate.
What, you just sink it down a bit, did you, and strip it?
I just did a roll cast out here in front. Steve, he seemed to inhale that pretty well.
Yeah, that was very sneaky. We'd had a couple of follows on the lures and a couple of hits, and Shan just roll cast a little fly out there.
Yep.
And nailed the fish of the day. What a pretty...
Oh, pretty keen to get away. I think she might be a keeper, Steve. I think we'll take that back to Renata for one of her her specialties. What about tonight's tea, eh?
Oh, I do for an entree anyway.
Yeah.
Just show the folks how you tell the difference between a female and a male.
This little top jawbone here, Steve, what we call the maxilla, doesn't come far behind the eye. If it was a male fish, this maxilla would come a fair way back behind the eye. It's always a very, very good indication of male or female in rainbow trout. And I think she'd make lovely tea.
Oh yes, mate. Well done.
Sorry to sneak that one out from under you, Steve.
Mate, I don't mind who catches them as long as someone catches one. It's been an interesting day's fishing here on the Donnelly. We started off up fairly high, caught a trout, went down the bottom end, caught a bream, caught a silver bream, caught some little salmon, and then we started working our way back up again and a couple more trout. It's a very, very interesting fishery, a strange mixture of saltwater and freshwater species, but a great place to wet a line. Over the last few weeks and months, we've shown you a whole bunch of different models of Engel portable fridge freezer, and today I wanted to share with you my favourite. It's called the SS40, and it's exactly the same interior workings as the 40-litre Engel fridge, but it's made completely from stainless steel, so it's very, very tough. It has a 37-litre capacity, and it also has a digital temperature readout, so you can tell at a glance exactly what the interior temperature of the unit is. This would be absolutely perfect, not only for the back of the four-wheel drive, but because of its stainless steel construction, fantastic in a boat too. Check it out, the Engel SS40.
A couple of weeks ago you saw me using the fantastic hillbilly cooking gear in Walpole, and that's our prize this week. For info on the show and an entry form, check the back page of the motoring section in yesterday's West Australian newspaper. Next week, the first of two special shows featuring great fishing moments that we couldn't fit into the episodes you've seen so far. There's also quite a bit of Bushy and I getting it wrong. You'll love it.
A second later he hooked up. He's missed it on his first pass. It's your lucky day, mate. Put you back. Settle down.